Tuesday, and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy Chad Fellers, we have casual talk about the challenges and successes in medical affairs with the most exciting and impactful professionals in pharma. As always, we have another great one for you today, so stick around.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm your host, Chad Fellers, along with my nifty sidekick, Mary Morton. How are you, Mary?
I'm terrific, as always. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm thankful that I can't believe we're almost through April, but I'm very happy to be starting May. It's been a long but productive month, but man, this year has just flown by really, really fast. A lot of great conversations that we've had. What's with the Dallas Stars jersey that you're wearing? I like it. Tell me more about it.
Karla, do you know?
I presume it's sports.
We're in the playoffs against the Avs, the Colorado Avalanche. Where we are up 3-2 presently. And our next game is tomorrow night, Thursday night, as we're recording. So hopefully by the time this airs, we will have moved on to the next stage. There's always a reason for the shirt I have on.
I have learned something. I've learned something new. Do you just go for the fights, Mary? Do you like to see them just kind of wail on each other? No?
No. But if you go to the minor league games, like the Texas Stars, which is here in Austin, you go for the fights. That's why you go.
That's what I would be interested in. Well, let's get into it. I don't want to fight with you today, Mary. So speaking of fights, let's don't do that. We've got an amazing guest that's with us today. And really a good topic, right? When we think about leadership development, think about the different paths beyond MSL. We've talked about medical director. We've talked about, you name it, clinical development, patient advocacy, corporate affairs. I'm excited about today. One that we haven't really talked about is medical affairs training. So with that, why don't you introduce today's guest?
I'm happy to. So today we welcome Karla Kenyon to the party. And a little bit about Karla. She's a PhD immunologist and molecular biologist. Been in biotech and pharma for about 17 years. She's worked as a medical science liaison and most recently led global medical training and capabilities as a senior director in medical affairs. Karla has which you guys will all hear, a real passion for medical affairs training and building the strategy and creating the resources and the curricula to support that, especially when it comes to training field medical teams and those that are getting ready for launch. So we are thrilled to have her join us today and share some of the Karla Chronicles. So her insights and lessons and leadership stories all from the front lines of medical affairs. So welcome to the show.
Thank you both.
You're very welcome.
I'm excited about this conversation. There's so many different questions we could get going with this. Karla, I would love to start. So did you grow up dreaming to be a medical affairs trainer when you got into the role? I'd love to hear a little bit about your story.
You mean when I was a little kid? Did I?
I mean, it wasn't very long. I mean, like you and Mary both. I mean, y'all started this job at a very early age, apparently. But anyway, with that, however you want to start, I think it's fine. Let's go with medical affairs. Like you started medical affairs, or you were pursuing a role within medical affairs, right? Did you initially want to be a trainer, or how did this come about?
Oh, okay. So I was in graduate school the first time I even heard about medical affairs, medical science liaisons. And when if I was to reduce it down to a sentence, I thought it's for people who are really sciencey and are real people, right? Put those two together. I'm like, I was made for this. And I used to say I was born to be an MSL. And then as soon as I got into an MSL position, right away I realized, wait, there's so much more. There's so many more opportunities. And on my very first team, I can remember right from the get being frustrated when I looked at some of the content that contractors were creating for the teams to use externally. And I also just inadvertently kept identifying gaps, educational gaps, just gaps in the knowledge of the team, a lack of consistency in the knowledge of the team, a lack of knowledge of medical strategy across the team, and just a lack of interesting stuff for us all to engage HCPs with. And so it was just like my mind was just racing. I was like, we should learn about this or we should learn about that. And I just happened to be in an organization where people said, okay, if you want to do it, you can do it. And so just right off the bat, I was kind of serving, I would say, 2 or 3 roles, doing my regular MSL job, finding every opportunity I could to train, and also creating scientific content for the MSLs to take out to HCPs.
So it was a value add, right? It was something that you truly wanted. It wasn't with the mindset of that's what you wanted to do from a career at that point, right? It was just finding or seeing a need, finding a need and filling a need, right? And just by your personality type as wanting to be able to kind of make that impact, I can tell that with it. Before we get on any further, I know Mary, you were going to say something here in a second. As tradition from our how we do things at MSLE Chronicles is we like to give key takeaways at the very beginning as far as the main topics or touch points we want our listeners to walk away with. Do you have any of those you want to share with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say as I was anticipating where our conversation might go today, I was
Love it.
thinking kind of 2 things. One is if anyone out there in podcast land has ever thought about, ask themselves, if they want to be a trainer, I guess a good question to ask yourself is why, and to realize that as we're probably going to talk about today, there is just a wide spectrum of roles that we call the medical trainer role. I mean, it ranges from somebody who actually never does the training, is not a teacher per se, but is able to organize a curriculum and identify people that will do the teaching, to somebody who, very much creates the content, does the organization of the curriculum, and executes on it. So different organizations at different times with different products serving different diseases will have vastly different needs from a medical trainer. So when we talk today about my approach, just realize I have a very singular approach that's kind of all encompassing. And my second point would just be to kind of highlight what I just said is how did I get into training? How could you get into training? And I mean, the best advice that I have to give is if this is something you're interested, find the opportunities from your position as an MSL, if you're an MSL, or whatever position you're doing. Find the opportunity, find the educational gap, fill it in, see how it goes, see how people respond and how you feel.
It's awesome.
That's it.
Perfect. So, and both of those takeaways, a lot of great information. So one of the things you were saying before we started into that was you found yourself identifying, we need information here, we need support here, that we're really training things. So, and I guess when people are considering making a position change, a career change, I assume everybody's kind of got this like aha moment where they just wake up and realize, oh my gosh, this is maybe maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Was there a moment like that for you where, aside from where you were, let me help the team I'm on as an MSL, individual contributor, help each other, where you said, no, I need to maybe step away from that and do this instead?
I think there was a million aha moments. It was just confirmation. I got a lot of positive affirmation that I was headed in the right direction. And it came in the form of when I gave training just for people to tell me that I'm going to use that. That helped. I've never understood that before. Or just, as I'm teaching, to have people be engaged, to have people smile, and feverishly taking notes. And then, just look, that means so much to me. Chad, it's like you were saying, I've never been the kind of person that's compelled to attain a particular title or ascend to a certain position. But to make a difference to, I mean, I think medical affairs people, I think field medical people in particular, are some of the best hardworking people in the world. That if you just give them knowledge, information, resources, what they can do, the difference that they can make in doctors' lives and patients' lives, it's like you get to do that as a trainer. You get to equip them and give them something that makes their life easier and their job more fulfilling. I don't know. So it's just like, I'll tell you one small anecdote, and that is, so at my most recent position, I had a very rigorous onboarding program. I used to warn people about it when I was interviewing them. And it was so reassuring to me to have an MSL that had been through the program come to me and say, I tell all the new MSLs that it's going to be hard and you're going to doubt yourself as you're going through this training, but you're going to be so happy when it's done and you're in the field and you're prepared. Like, you're prepared for questions that maybe have never even been asked and for questions that don't even have answers to them. But you know so much and you're so well grounded and confident that you can take it anywhere and just make good on every conversation.
I love that. And I may or may not have debriefed a candidate that was scared after talking to you in an interview.
Yeah.
Because,
Be
but,
transparent.
I think that's huge. Think about the alternative, which would be to go to work for a company with a an essentially brand new sort of science and technology and get 75% of the training you need, and then whatever we didn't train you, just figure it out. You'll figure it out in the field. I think I would be anxious all the time if I didn't have the thorough training that I could have had from someone as dedicated and committed to that mission as you are.
Well, listen, sometimes, again, the needs, the role of a trainer is going to be different for different organizations. The size of the organization, how far in the evolution the organization is, what the therapeutic is. Is it just is it a therapy that, treats a non-life threatening condition with like a me too mechanism of action? Or is it, a situation in a devastating, deadly disease with a therapy that might be high impact but could be high risk? The
Mm-hmm.
training of that MSL team, all of medical affairs, all of everybody, to be honest with you, across the organization, commercial too, in that latter situation where you have a complex science and you might have a, a benefit risk profile that needs to be respected. Like those, everybody that engages with providers and KOLs, if they're not adequately trained, it could mean the life of a patient. It's high impact.
Yeah.
I think it's high impact what we do.
Yeah. I, from a broad way of looking at it, if it wasn't this disease area or this therapy, I think the thoroughness, is thoroughness a word? I don't know. We're going to go with
It is here. Yes, it is here.
Yes, it
Yep.
is in the MSLE Chronicles Lexicon. The thoroughness of which you created and provided training to medical affairs and commercial, everybody who needed that training. And I know you say it's different from company to company, but should it be from an overarching level? Oh. I mean, one of the things I was thinking about, and I hadn't even prepared to ask you this question, but you were saying something before about at some companies, one person creates a training and the other person delivers it, or somebody different might be the one delivering it. And I'm not really sure how wise that is. I don't know. What do I know? But anyway, I don't know. I'm trailing off. I'll step back a little bit.
Do you want to respond? Was that a question, Mary?
Did it end in a question mark? I don't think it did.
I don't know. What's your question again?
Well, just, wondering, are we as an industry doing the best we can do to provide high impact medical affairs training to all of the people who need it?
No.
Maybe not.
I think that there is a lot of room for improvement. I think that it's often one of the later roles that's developed after like a team has been staffed. It comes sometime later and that goes to show how well it's, how important how much of a priority it is. My own personal experience, which is the best that what I can speak to the best, is just that, I've worked at a few companies, and I very much trained myself at pretty much every company. And so, I'm a good trainer, so I think I trained myself pretty good. But that's not going to be beneficial. It's not in the best interest for a company. You really need field folk, even beyond MSLs, to have a real understanding, a deep understanding of their roles, how to identify opportunities, how to bring value to clinicians. They need to have a clear understanding of medical strategy, and the knowledge has to be consistent across the country.
Yeah, I think that's especially if we say that or one of the major values of medical affairs from a company standpoint, it is the insights that they can bring back, or to confirm medical strategy or business strategy, or even now we're getting into those that we are measuring claims data and seeing the change in claims data over time based off education. I mean, there's some exciting things that are going on, but nevertheless, I mean, the important thing of standardizing that, I think, is essential to truly give you an accurate representation of what the landscape really is. And then also, so you said several things, and I'll respond, Mary, to your question about should we all be trained to that degree. I think in a real world, or in an ideal world, the answer would be yes. But I think sometimes it is dependent on the therapy, like Karla mentioned, right? I know in these specific roles, such as you are the expert, and it's not just even this. Oftentimes, it's not even just around the product, right? That you have. It is around the mechanism, the delivery, all the different potential side effects and why those may have happened, potential lookouts. I mean, there's a multitude of things. Your training role, is it specific to MSLs? Is it around training and processes too? Is it just the scientific data? Tell us your experience.
In my particular, with my particular experience, I've always had opportunities to train in both commercial and medical.
Okay.
There's nothing like what a medical person can bring to the commercial side, you know? Like as long as, you have a mind for catering your content for your audience, right? But like, so yeah, MSLs are, I would say, a primary focus, but I trained every level in the organization, in the medical, clinical development, even clinical operations. So I trained on the medical side, pretty much every level, and then the field folk on the commercial side. And I worked hand in hand with a commercial trainer.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say, it was a wonderful partnership where she had she excelled at the things that maybe I didn't focus on as much. And what I really brought was content and delivery. Even to the commercial side. She brought intimate knowledge of what each of the different teams does, and would I help me identify, like, she would call out, this is the educational need right now, or this is an initiative that's coming up with this commercial team. And like, I was thinking something around this. And then, I would come in as the medical trainer and typically create the content and execute. But MSLs were the ones that got the most in-depth onboarding. Like the difference between, if I train a medical director, maybe they get like 10 hours of onboarding training, which is
That's
incredibly
great.
helpful for them to get rolling fast, right?
Yep.
Um, but MSLs typically get 3 months of intense training.
So you mentioned two things out of that. You mentioned content development and then execution of that as well too. Can you talk a little bit about the breakdown? Is it the development of the, or is it the communication of it?
And this is just one more time I have to preface, there's my
Sure.
approach, and then there's what I've seen throughout the industry. So everybody's going to have their own approach, and a lot of different approaches to this. I mean, you might want to interview other trainers who listen to this and go, I don't, my role is nothing like what that person said. Don't be surprised. I'm extremely hands-on, and I've just always like had a passion for creating the content. But a lot of trainers don't create content, and they
Okay.
don't need to. They can, let's say one big part of being a trainer that probably most people wouldn't know is how much collaboration and alignment you do with leadership and managers across the organization. It's tons of feedback. They're identifying things. They're keeping the trainer up to date on what's coming down the pipe, when data is about to come out, so you can do your planning for training, et cetera, like insights that are coming from the field. And so you get a lot of feedback and guidance from people throughout the organization to help you determine what you're going to train on. And then if you are a trainer like me, I think it's important to integrate with the field folk so that you're on the front lines, so that you can identify training opportunities that maybe managers wouldn't identify. And so then the overwhelming majority of my time, 75% of my time, was actually spent training. But that had a lot to do with being in an organization that was growing rapidly and having a lot of positions that needed to be trained over my tenure.
I love the fact you're sharing your experience, because that's your experience, and so hearing kind of your journey and how you did that, I think is very applicable. A chance to be able to kind of create something of your own as well too, right? Some of these, if they're looking at doing that,
I think part of the beauty of having this be the Karla Chronicles today is so not just so MSLs who are looking for something else to enrich their career, but also other people who are medical affairs training professionals to look at your experience and say, I would love to incorporate some of these things into what I do that I didn't think that I could step forward and say, hey, can I do that? Because you've had such a cool and unique opportunity with all the amazing things that you did, which I want to dig in a little bit more on. But I think that what people are going to be able to learn is how, I'm going to use the word enriching again, how enriching this role has been for you. Because, as we say in the career world that I'm in, people have a calling. It's different from talking to somebody who is an MSL and they're like, well, it's time for me to be an MSL director, or it's time for me to do something else. Well, like you said earlier, in your takeaway, if you want to be a trainer, why? Have a conversation with yourself, meditate on it. Why is that what I want to do? And why do I feel drawn to it? So that's why I really want to uncover a lot of that stuff with you too. So to Chad's point, we want to hear the Karla perspective today and not how the rest of the industry does it, because the way that you did it is the coolest. So
Can I just say one thing that what you said made me think of?
yes,
Absolutely.
When I'm the kind of person that will talk about the most important teachers in my life. I mean, I can name them. And there are people that you engage with, that you learn things that are profound, that change you, that you take those lessons throughout your life. And that's how much I value teachers and teaching and the impact that a mentor can have. So I really am very passionate about this role.
is there anything that you recall from any of your past teachers? Anything that they've said or that had a lasting impact on you that, when you think of a particular teacher or educator, you think of this line or this saying?
I mean, the great teachers can be actual teachers, and they can be a good friend, or they can be a stranger on the street.
100%. Yeah.
So I will say that. But I don't know how much this is going to serve this particular episode, but I think one of the most important lessons that I learned from an actual teacher in a school setting was how to write.
It applies with what you're doing now, though, right? How you communicate and get messages across.
What do you think is your secret sauce in building a training program? Like, what is the must-have ingredient that you feel like you have to include?
Okay. In building a training program, again, a collaborative relationship with many people across the organization. Very important. Communication is key, because you are training these teams that are being managed by people who have a vested interest in where everything's going. So honor that for sure. You have to be highly organized, and be able to create a curriculum, a plan, to be able to sometimes start from the ground up and know, okay, like Chad was saying, this is, we have a complex disease. There needs to be time dedicated to learning the disease. Then we have to talk about mechanism of action. Then we have to go through the efficacy data. Then we have to go through the safety data. There needs to be testing. You need to be very organized to create all the curriculum. But then in terms of being creating engaging content or impactful content, I think it's essential the history. You got to know your history of the disease. You have to know the history of the company, of their first trials, of the failures in communication and the early successes. All of that needs to be part of the storytelling. You have to be a good storyteller. When you are assembling a training or creating scientific content for educational purposes, it has to be very linear. I mean, it has to make sense how you put it together. So not everybody intuitively knows like in how to tell a story. So you will have history, you tell it in a good order, you go into the deep science, much deeper than those people will ever actually probably have a conversation about. But always with the caveat of, listen, you're never going to be asked this question, but I am telling you this science or going down this rabbit hole because it's important that you understand all that is known and all that is not known so that you feel confident again in those situations where you're on the cutting edge and you're going to be asked questions from clinicians who are making big clinical decisions and there might not be answers. And you have to be able to kind of give them information. Maybe, they ask you for, is there data on this? And then you go, no, there's no data on that. And if you just answer that way and you don't have a deep understanding of the science, that is an opportunity lost. And that could result in a patient not being selected for a trial that would benefit them. But if your MSL or your medical affairs person is able to go, we don't have data for that, but it's worth knowing that we do have data for this. Or, I read this article that suggests this over here. We're not where you're making claims, but you're like, there's all of this. It's not an answer, but I hope that helps you, doctor, with the answer, that your clinical decision making.
And one of the really cool things that I took that I think was just almost like a couple of layers below what you said, but you implied, is you're instilling the confidence in them so that they're not walking into a doctor's office going, oh my God, I hope he doesn't ask me about this because I don't remember that or I didn't learn that. And then they can kind of go in and feel good about what they're doing and not be nervous.
Every MSL that's worth their weight is always going to feel that way. Oh my God, I didn't study enough. Oh my God, I'm going to forget. Oh my God, I don't know what they're going to ask. So that's always going to happen. But you make it through the interaction and you bring value and you feel like $1,000,000.
So is there a story for you that you recall that's like, hell yeah, that's why I do this?
I mean, it's just $1,000,000. It's $1,000,000. It's like going through this intense onboarding training with MSLs and having them nail their certification. You're just like, oh, you're so proud. They feel like my children. They feel like my kids. It's so wonderful. And so that plus, if you're the kind of trainer that teaches that might get up in front of audiences, it's kind of entertaining. You're kind of in the entertainment business. And yeah, there's some moments like, don't talk to me 5 minutes before I go on stage in front of 100 and something people, but talk to me after. And I'm ready to throw a party. It just feels it's just so fun looking out at all these faces and they're listening, they're taking notes and it matters. And they tell you later, that's going to help me, and that's so gratifying. 1,000,000 stories like that.
Love that.
Is there this is how I do things, and sorry, not sorry. I was just reflecting back on one of the comments that you made earlier, talking about we don't have data to support, and helping someone kind of think, basically connect dots, if you will, that may help inform them to make a decision, and that where there's not clear direction, right? So with that, and knowing that that was maybe an expectation for some of these for the therapeutic area that you were in. Let's just go from that. But where it's a very specialized, very frontline, new to markets, whole new concept, right? Is there a certain question that you would ask, or that you would make sure that the hiring manager would ask during the interview process to see if this person has the capacity to be able to do that? Is what you're looking for, or is that something that you think can just be taught to anyone that takes a job?
I love this question too, because of very few clients that involve the medical affairs trainer in the interview process, and I think they should. So I'm dying to hear this answer.
I thank you for the question. I have been involved in interviewing,
Okay.
and then I wasn't. And I think that what the trainer can do in those situations where you have complex science that taps into a lot of different scientific disciplines, and for a therapeutic, an experimental or a therapeutic that has a risk benefit profile that needs to be honored, I think it would be important to have the trainer interviewing, because the trainer is going to have those frank conversations about what the expectations are from the new MSL in order for them to even be released into the field. Like, you are going to have 3 months of at-home training, and you really need to do studying, and that it's all designed to make sure that you are studying the whole time, and you are going to have to test, and and it's intense. And I would encourage people to ask other MSLs during the interview process about the onboarding and about the training. And I would say there not everyone is cut out for every kind of science, right? Or MSLs are encompass a broad spectrum of personalities and talents and features. And from like some of the best MSLs I've ever worked with that I adore are not necessarily the most scientific. They're fantastic at relationships and connecting people. Yeah, like it's all over the place. And they could be absolutely fantastic, but maybe not the right MSL for a product that you need to know. You really actually need to know genetics or molecular biology or immunology or all of them. We're putting a big focus on our conversation right now on teaching the science. But a
Yeah.
huge, huge part of training is teaching people how to do their role, execute their role, right? And how to improve upon their capabilities. So I just think that, a trainer will have their mind on all these things during an interview process.
Well, let's get into that a little for a few minutes then too, beyond the science, right? So tell us the other areas of focus that your experience shows that the trainers work on as well too.
So I would say how to be, let's say for MSL, I'm just going to focus on MSL here, because that's really where this kind of training happened the most. So how to be good MSL, right? How to make every conversation like you bring value and you are able to create value from the situation. You know what I mean? Like, no just being asked a question and then answering a question and then that's the end of your interaction. Knowing, like, learning the skills, emotional IQ, being able to read the room, read the person, and have a bunch of ideas in your back pocket of where you can go if things start falling flat, or ideas in your head of insights that you should be gathering, that the organization like really wants to know providers' views on this, that, and the other thing. Having a plan for like how to engage and then be able to communicate the results of your engagement to the organization.
Mm.
The insights, like I know you're a fan of insight gathering. So those are there. I can say for every team that where insights are a big part of their role, they need to be trained on how to engage and be like ask open-ended questions and things that keep conversations going. And they also have to be trained on how to identify what is an insight and what isn't, or you know what I mean? And be trained on not only like the organization is looking for these questions, but we actually want you to go ahead and record it, even if you've heard it 10 times in the last month. Record it 10 times.
Yep.
And here's an example of a good insight in here, you know, like the training for everything that you want from an MSL, there's a training. Do they need to record their interactions and the quality and the quantity of their interactions? There needs to be a training on that. Or because you're only as good as your data, and your data is only as good as the people who are trained to
Yep.
know why it's important and how to do it.
So, so we've all seen the death by slide deck. So how do you actually keep the training fresh and engaging and useful for your students?
Thank you
Her
for that.
students. Her students. I love it. The class is in
pupils.
session. Class is in session with Karla. Okay. Please proceed.
I gotta tell you, bad slide decks and death by slide deck just are such a pet peeve of mine. It's hilarious to me that I've never said death by slide deck, but it's now in my repertoire. Okay, so just FYI, to me, number one rule of slide decks is don't put a whole bunch of stuff on your slides. Just put very little. Like you're gonna get so much closer to not boring people to death if you just put like a picture and a few words and then you do the storytelling. The deck should just be the prompt for the teacher. Yeah. Animations are wonderful for complex scientific concepts. Everybody benefits from certain animations. So if
Chad
you
loves
can,
animation.
yeah, the fast.
I'm talking about in
Oh.
your slides.
Oh, yeah. That too. Yes. Sorry, I detracted. Go ahead, Karla. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, like, I think kind of what this makes me think about is the difference between a subject matter expert and a teacher. And a subject matter expert and a teacher can know all of the same stuff. Maybe a subject matter expert might know a tiny bit more. They might have the inside scoop on some data that hasn't yet come out. Okay, great. But when they get in front of a team and they're going to train the team, are they a good teacher?
Yeah.
And I would say there's more subject matter experts than there are good teachers.
Yes. I mean, knowing science is different from being able to communicate the science, right? And then to where it can be recalled, understood, to the different levels of, I mean, meeting people where they are, even whether it's by professional background. That could be a way that you have to adjust your style of how you communicate certain points. Yes, I'm fully aligned with the less is more idea around having PowerPoint decks. I'm even thinking about, one of the things, right, is when we shifted to this COVID world, like how do you even change to the new generation that has an attention span of 2 minutes or something like that on, I mean, how do you do that? And you've got a 30 slide resource or a 50 slide, how is it going to be recalled? What's the best way to do it? I think one of the examples, Karla, I don't know if this is something that you've ever tried. We did this for journal clubs. I just Googled interactive journal club, and lo and behold, it pulled up and PubMed. There's like 2 articles on interactive journal clubs, and basically the idea is instead of it being a didactic discussion where someone leads a journal club discussion for the others and reviews the paper kind of like in a structured way, it'd be okay. They would put up a slide of the figure and say, okay, well, first exercise would be whatever this data point is now, what does this slide say? And that would be the discussion in the midst of this. And so you could actually say, this is what I'm learning from the slide. Okay, now let's go back to the abstract and see if it's truly reflective of what the data is here. And so instead of sitting on one end and just receiving and then potentially forgetting it and only having one person, the person that spent hours on putting together this information to walk through, they're the ones that really retain the most of the knowledge. To put it up in this way to where it's less prep work is required, but then you can have that interactive discussion to hear things like, how would you what is this an appropriate title? How would you rewrite this title of this manuscript to be more of an accurate reflection? Whereas what's missing out of this? Where do they really highlight, right? So we've got to figure out different ways for retention in ways. And so I don't know. That was just amusing.
Yeah. No, be engaging. Be engaging. Be engaging when you're doing your storytelling, but then actually be engaging. Anytime anybody asks me a question, well, what do you think about that? Getting everybody involved. It doesn't hurt to have a little comic relief too.
The more you can have somebody engage, that's right. It's a discussion, right? That's the whole thing. We've got to move away from I got to make this presentation, which presentations are part of it, right? But how do you really make it into an interactive discussion with the people that you're there, right? I mean, I think that establishes connection. It establishes peer-to-peer scientific. Not only the engagement, but they start really shifting to that trusted scientific provider for these providers, right? A resource for them, and it's by being able to have these types of conversations, which you've talked about, which is required. Training is required to put them in a spot to where they can actually pull this type of thing off. It's a science in itself, right? Being able to put these things together.
Yeah. MSL presentations, medical affairs presentations at ad boards, all of this. You have a stunning amount of information in those slide decks. You're not going to be terribly impactful or engaging if you cover every single point there is to be made.
That's right.
You got to look at your watch, gauge what's going on with the audience, and find a way to tell a story and hit those key points. Because you might have thought you had a half an hour and you only have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a story I hear more frequently than I don't, is that you thought you had 30 minutes and you had 5 or 10. So I suspect there's a lot of people listening here that have been through trainings with other trainers and are looking at you and going, oh, this is what it could be like. This is awesome, and they're like, I love what Karla's doing. I want to do this. What advice would you give to people who are considering a role like this, aside from asking yourself why? Let's say the answer to it is something reaffirming. Then what?
Do it. Do it from the position you're in now. Find opportunities to do something. It could be any aspect of the training that we're talking about, right? Helping somebody with, maybe your thing is presentation skills. Maybe you know a little something about how to engage and what, like emotional IQ. Maybe your thing is like you're more of an organization person and you're really good at doing planning or curriculum or something like that. Whatever it is, from the position you're in, volunteer, show, demonstrate that you can do it.
That's great. It's like you're
Work
training yourself
overtime.
on the job.
Work too
What'd you
much.
say? I'm sorry.
Overtime. Work too much.
Well, yes. I think for a season, though, it's okay, though, right, Karla? If it gets you to where you want to go, or it brings the satisfaction that you're looking for, and you think you can do that long term, it's important to be able to get some of that experience, right? I mean, it is. Whether it's you put it on your IDP when talk with your manager, right? About this is the exposure I want to get. One of the things I've always tried to push with my teams is be solution minded. And here's a gap that I've identified, but here's a potential solution just for consideration. I would love for you to take a look at this, right? I mean, there are ways that you can slowly insert yourself and show your value or learn or get exposure to. There are ways to be able to flex that muscle. I think it's just getting creative with that. And then a lot of times people are just afraid that they're going to be told no, right? I mean, I think you have to put yourself out there and be willing to do that. If you're wanting to, you saw that, you saw a need and you put yourself out. And look where it took you, right? Beyond just the MSL role to get to something that it's clearly you're passionate about. And it's something that I can see you doing this type of role for a long time and being completely satisfied with it. So thanks so much for hopping on to share some of your experiences. As we wrap things up, any closing thoughts or comments on your end?
Yeah, I think so. Other than thank you both. So nice to meet you, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about training.
And that's the beautiful thing about the community, or our tribe, I guess, if you will, at MSLE Chronicles, right? It's an opportunity to learn from one another. And it's a huge mentor network, if you will. If you have questions or want to hear some stories, trust that she is willing to have a quick conversation with you. If that's something that you're interested in. How can they reach out? LinkedIn, I'm assuming, Karla?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. Listeners, I really appreciate your continued investment into the MSLE Chronicles. We aren't anything without you. It's an opportunity for us just to have casual conversation, to learn from one another, for you to grow from all the mistakes that I've made, and I've made a lot of them, and then also learn on some good experiences too with our guests like Karla. So thanks so much for listening today. Look forward to our next conversation. Until then, lead well.